Hello guys. Today I'm going to be taking my measurements. For this you're going to need a string. I'll talk about why it's around my waist in a second. The cameo. The cameo, sometimes you'll buy ones that will twist on the side. You want to make sure that the side seam is right on the side. And a tape measure. So we'll get started. Okay, so you can't see my face right now. That's fine. We're not focusing on my face. We are just going to take the measurements of the torso. There's two kinds of measurements that you might want to take. There is the horizontal measurements and the vertical measurements. We'll start out with the horizontal. That's where the string comes in. You're going to want to tie a string tightly around your waist and then wiggle around. And that'll show you where your natural waist is. That's your first measurement, is your natural waist. And I will measure it too. That would put me at about 26.5 inches around the waist. And then the next measurement you're going to want to take is, we'll start going up from down after that. You're going to want to go around probably about where your bra rests, or I don't know, a few inches up your actual rib cage. And I measure here at a total exhale about 27 inches, and at a total inhale about 28.5. So I can measure that, or I could just go with a natural breath. And I'm about a 28 right there, so that might be where I'm most comfortable at for the top measurements of my corset. So I might try to order corsets that go from there. And then they also tell you to take the bottom of your rib cage, but as I've never worn a corset before, I don't have bottom of the rib cage. The bottom of my rib cage is my natural waist. I'm not sure if there's any rules or something to where you would want to take a couple inches down to find where you would actually be cinching. But for now, my natural waist is my lower rib cage, so same thing. The next measurement you're going to want to take is your low waist, which you might consider your hips. So for me, my low waist is my hip bones here. I've got a fairly bony anatomy, so I can tell exactly where they are. If you don't have fairly bony anatomy, you might have to search some more, but I feel like that's a pretty solid place to take measurements. So for this measurement, I am about a 35. And then if you have a longer lined corset, you're going to want to take measurements that are all the way down to the bottom of your hips, which is the widest part of your hips, which, I mean, looking at me, you can probably find the widest part of my hips. It's somewhere around here, the bottom of my cameo perhaps. So I will take a measurement there. I'm not going to need them because I don't have a long lined corset yet, but so I'm about 37.5 inches there. And this, I believe this is the part that's not going to be changing so much. So if you get a measurement here, you generally don't have to have leeway for it. Of course, up here you're breathing, so you're going to need leeway for that. And those are the basics of your horizontal measurements. As I said, if you have manipulated your waistline before, you're going to want to take where the bottom of your rib cage is and your natural waist, which probably will go down. And then some people ask for between your hips and your natural waist. So you could do somewhere in between here. There are some measurements if you are having an overbust corset where you would measure out your bust. That's not important to me right now because I'm only going to focus on underbuster corsets. For the horizontal measurements, the one you're going to want to do standing up, we're going to sit down here in a minute, but the one you want to do standing up is your side seam. So we'll start off with that. I'll go from the top of my cameo to the center because, I mean, the top of my cameo is probably where a corset can lay without my arm digging into it. And, I mean, it can always be shorter. So I'll go from the top, and you don't want to go all the way down to the bottom because you got a space in there and that won't help you at all. So probably go from about the top part to the center part, and you will get, and that's what a good side seam has to do here. You don't want a side seam that will be going this way or this way. You want one that's going straight down. So I'm about 7 3/4 inches or so. Then you're going to want to start from the center, and I would go from where my hip bone measurement is, so that appears to be about here. So just because I've got my finger there, I'll start from the bottom and go all the way up to the center. And that is about 6 3/4 inches. And as I said, and for the bottom, you can make it longer, you can make it shorter. A few more measurements of mine. I'm about 5 feet 5 inches. I weighed myself this morning. I'm about 127.5. So I tend to stay somewhere in the 120 range, going from the lower part of the mid-20s to the higher part of the mid-20s. We're going to sit down here in a minute. There's a few measurements you want to do while you're sitting down. There's the center seam you want to do, and the princess seam, which is probably from about your hip bone to on the side to about your bust or whatever's vertical. And you want to make sure you're doing them sitting down, so that when you sit down, the corset doesn't go, like, start digging into your legs. So what you'll want to do is you'll take your measurement, and I'm going from about my bra line all the way down to about the bottom of the cameo. I've got about 10.5, and then you're also going to want to divide up your measurements between the bottom part and the top part, and that's about 7.5. And then from up here to about down here, that is about 3 inches. Then you want to go on to your princess seam from about the bottom of your bust to the center seam again. Here, hold on. We'll go down all the way first. Goes down to about 10 comfortably. Right now I've never worn a corset, so I'm pretty sure I'm slouching a little bit. If I were to wear a corset, that length might expand a little bit. And then you want to go from the top to about midway. That's about 3 inches as well. And then from midway all the way down to your lap. So, quick mathematical skills here. That is about 7.5 inches, I believe. So those are the measurements you want to take sitting down.